I'm not gonna lie, y'all. The title of this movie had me scared to watch it because, yeah, sometimes indie movies can be heavy. Hello, everybody. I'm Anaji, and this is FMV Review. So today we're gonna be talking about the killing of two lovers, which tells the story of a marriage going through some difficulties, and you're watching as the husband is trying to fix it without giving into his darker impulses. I'll just say it that way. I'll just say it like that. First of all, I want to say I think the director of this, Richard Machio, I think he has some potential. I don't think I've ever seen anything else he's done, but this movie has definitely a particular style and mood to it. There's a certain assuredness of the direction that I think this guy has some potential if he keeps making stuff. It has some really gorgeous cinematography. I think this is shot on film. Maybe it's digital, but it looks very film-like. And yeah, it has this really beautiful like static shots. They do an interesting thing where they're so still that they start off really beautiful, and then they start to make you more and more uncomfortable as they stay because they don't move. Like you realize when you watch a lot of more modern films that you tend to have more camera movement and more variety of shots. So when you make a stay in one angle, it can be unsettling. And this movie definitely leans into that from time to time. I also think the sound design was really good. I don't know who did the score, but the score has this very discordant kind of sounds like sometimes like someone hitting metal or like someone's like screeching metal subtly in the background, and it gets across the tension that I mean is in the title of the movie, The Killing of Two Lovers. It's a very ominous title. I think the acting is really good in this, especially from the main lead. I don't know him by name. I know he was in the Lethal Weapon TV show, but he does a really good job here as the main character, David. He definitely paints a very nuanced picture of a guy who is trying to find his footing after his marriage has hit some trouble. And it's raw. Like you see how pathetic his character can be, how scary he can be. It's not an easy picture though. Like they don't just make it where this guy is terrible and a monster, right? Like he's good with his kids. He's funny. You can see why people like him. It's not one of those movies where you're just going, I don't know how this guy ever got this woman or ever had these kids. You can see what qualities about him are good, but also how there are some pretty scary tendencies he has. So I want to give some kudos to the main act. I would also say the writing. I like the fact that these are complicated characters, not even just David. These are some complicated characters involved in this movie, and it's messy and it gets into some difficulties about relationships. And I mean, they're not like fairy tales. They're not like Disney fairy tales. A real relationship and marriage is difficult and not always great. I mean, I've never been married, but I'm old enough to have seen a bunch of relationships happen around me, been in some that it's not easy. And I think this movie definitely tries to capture some of that. This movie is definitely a bit of a slow build, and I do think this movie could have been trimmed down a bit. It's pretty short. It's only about an hour 24, but I definitely had moments where I was feeling restless. I definitely was getting a little, you start doing that thing where you're watching a movie and then you start looking off to the side, you start looking at your phone real quick. I definitely had moments. Not to say the movie's bad, but I had moments. I think it could have been trimmed a little bit. And now I'm going to get into my last point, but before I do, hey, if you're digging this video, you'll like it, and subscribe to the channel. All right, let's do this. I think this movie could have benefited from fleshing out the wife of the main character, because the real heart of this story is the couple, right? The couple, right? I don't think the wife is as she's not. I have a harder time feeling out why their relationship stopped working, especially from her side, right? Because anytime you're looking at a relationship, it takes two people to make a relationship. So if it starts falling apart, it usually is a thing where both people on both sides are doing things or not realizing they're doing things that makes it fall apart. And while we do get some of the way David sees, a lot of what David sees the situation as, we don't get it as much from his wife, which is kind of unfortunate because I would have liked to see why they've decided to like take a break from their marriage. And I wish her character would have been fleshed out more. Also, and this is an unfortunate thing sometimes with indie movies, and I mean, to be real, I don't know how this really would have ended either, but this movie just kind of ends. Like there were sometimes in indie movies when you're watching them that it's almost as if the director was not quite sure how to end it, or they didn't want to do the difficult task of, okay, I want it to go from here to here, but in order to get it to go from here, point A to point, C, I need to hit point B. Sometimes some directors, it feels like they don't want to do that, so they just jump to point C. And this movie definitely suffers from that. I definitely at the end of the movie was kind of left going, huh, what? Okay. So yeah. So yeah, The Killing of Two Lovers. If you're looking for some intense, emotionally dramatic, but raw story about the difficulties of love and relationships, give this movie a look. I do think that there are some missteps along the way that kind of hamper it, but overall, I would recommend it. And with that, I'm going to give The Killing of Two Lovers a 7 out of 10. So, hey, if you've seen this and maybe it touched a nerve in your heart and you could relate to some of it, leave a comment down below. I would love to read that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.